Stef, one of the most polarizing players in this whole draft class, get the first round draft capital that he was projected to get by a lot of insiders, a lot of analysts. It's Kadarius Toney. He ends up going 20th overall to the New York Giants. I have several New York Giants fans that are my friends, and a lot of them really, really like the pick from a football perspective. Stef, I'm interested to hear your take on Toney, how he fits into this offense, and what you expect from him, both from a redraft and dynasty fantasy football perspective as well. I think he's a very interesting prospect.
Super interesting prospect. We know he's athletic. He has mid-first round draft capital, which is something that cannot be ignored. And that's the highest correlating factor to a wide receiver finishing in the top 24 in fantasy. It's far and away draft capital. So you get that box checked for Kadarius Toney. And then after you look at draft capital, we're looking at target share, breakout age, age-adjusted production, which is essentially why we like players like Rondale Moore and Jamar Chase, because they had these insane video game-like numbers at age 18 and 19 years old. But I think we can explain away some of the age-adjusted production issues with Kadarius Toney. We saw him switch initially from a Wildcat quarterback at the University of Florida, switch to wide receiver in an offense that had Kyle Pitts taking 16% of the targets. I can see why it maybe took Toney a little bit longer to truly break out and have more than a 10% target share. But even on the Giants, his ceiling is capped right away. Even if you see this Kadarius Toney draft pick move as a reset for the Giants' passing game weapons, you still have Kenny Golladay, who they just brought in, Darius Slayton playing that explosive field stretcher role, Sterling Shepard still there as a possession receiver, Evan Engram that is there as a serviceable pass-catching tight end. You got to get Saquon Barkley his targets in the passing game. And we know Kadarius Toney, just based on his measurables athletically, at 5'11", 193, we know he's super fast, we know he's super bursty, we know he's explosive, but those aren't necessarily traits of an alpha wide receiver one, a receiver who's going to play the X role, be a target magnet for an offense. That's just not what Kadarius Toney is. So your best bet is that he gets used all over the field like a Curtis Samuel and can have a 1,000-yard plus yard from scrimmage season. But I'm just not too excited. Where I'm taking Kadarius Toney right now is probably in the middle of the second round. Give me Amon-Ra St. Brown over Kadarius Toney all day.
It's funny you brought up Curtis Samuel. I actually had him as my comp. Toney, super explosive player, can be used all around the formation. 5'11", 193. Curtis Samuel's 5'11", 196, so almost identical in terms of their stature. Both, just really explosive players. Toney ran that 4.38 40-yard dash, has the 96th percentile burst score per player profiler. But, Steph, I've actually been rising a little bit, ever so slightly, on Toney in these dynasty formats and for his long-term outlook in the NFL after I've really started to uncover this Giants situation. Because at first, I was surprised, too. When I even started to see the Giants projected to think about wide receiver in this draft, I'm like, why do they need receiver? They have all the guys you mentioned. 1 to 2 years from now, this situation could be much, much more clear. You look at Sterling Shepard. They could easily get out of Sterling Shepard's contract after the season. Would not surprise me at all if they did so. You look at Evan Engram. He's in a contract year. You look at Darius Slayton. I think Darius Slayton's going to be around, but he was a 5th-round pick. He's used as a field stretcher. If anything, if Toney comes in and flashes, he's going to surpass Slayton on this depth chart. So as early as next season in 2022, it could be Golladay as the 1, Toney as the 2, and Slayton as the 3 for hopefully a Danny Dimes that takes a step forward this season. So I get the concerns about the crowded receiver room and just weapons group for the New York Giants for 2021. So that's why I'm probably staying away from Toney in redraft formats. If he starts to pop off, I'll take a look at him on the waiver wire and things like that. But long term, if Toney can prove that he's a good wide receiver in the NFL, which he certainly could be, we just don't have the sample size from him out of Florida, I think there's definitely an avenue for him to have an impact. If Daniel Jones is the quarterback of the future for them, if Kenny Golladay and Toney and this new influx of weapons can help him ascend and have the upside that we've seen him have as a rookie and in his second year, then I think Toney could start to get a little bit interesting. You can't ignore the draft capital, like you said. And I'm just going to wait and see with Toney. He's not someone I'm all in on, but he's definitely not someone I'm all out on. So I want to see how he does as a rookie. Check out these first 6, 8, 12 games before I make any final judgments on him as a pro.
That first round draft capital is going to give him a nice cushion to where even if he doesn't do much in year one, almost like I look at Laviska Shenault, had way less draft capital. We saw the utilization where his now he's trending upward. We expect that volume to go up. We like him as a prospect. We know he can be used in all these different ways on the field. That's another way that I view Kadarius Toney, and it can't be ignored how much he was able to do yardage-wise in college in 2020. So as a senior, 70 receptions, 984 receiving yards, 11 total touchdowns in 11 games. One of those was on the ground. And then 294 special teams yards and 161 rushing yards on just 19 attempts. So this is a guy that can play a gadget role. He has quick acceleration, good change of direction, and ability to pick up yards after the catch.
You really just have to look at Toney in 2021 and see if he's making a positive impact on this offense. Like, I think he could just be one of these Swiss Army knife type players that, no, he's not getting the consistent volume or workload or number of touches per game to where he's a consistent fantasy football asset. He's not someone that's going to show up and make a highlight play necessarily every single week. But if we start to see Toney get sprinkled in and he's effective with his touches, if he's showing us efficiency, if he's showing us almost like a Brandon Ayuk light from last season, like starts to get involved, starts to get some opportunity and the wheels really start turning, he's someone that could be very, very interesting for the Giants' future. So no, I don't think he's going to have quite as much of an impact on this football team as Ayuk had last season, but similar draft capital for the two guys. Ayuk obviously had that opportunity open itself up because of other injuries on the roster. But if Toney starts to sprinkle in some splash plays, I think that's all the Giants are going to need to see to move on from Shepard and Engram and some of these other targets for 2022 and beyond.
DFS darling Kadarius Toney.